Welcome to the Heart of Healthcare podcast. I'm Hallie Tecco.
I'm Michael Esquivel.
And I'm Steve Krause. And every Monday, we bring you the latest in healthcare innovation as we sit down with entrepreneurs and industry experts.
So buckle up and join us as we figure out how to improve healthcare for all.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Heart of Healthcare podcast. I'm your host, Michael Esquivel, and I'm joined today by my dear friend and co-host, Steve Krause. Steve, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Michael. We got a great guest today, right on the cutting edge of AI. So I'm so super excited for this pod.
I am too, Steve. So we are very excited to welcome today's guest, Clay Bavor. Clay is the co-founder of Sierra, the AI-powered customer experience platform. After graduating from Princeton, he joined Google, where he met Brett Taylor, his co-founder of Sierra. In his 18-plus years at Google, Clay touched almost every product area, from search and ads to Google's enterprise products. He also served as leader of Google Labs, which incubated Google's AR and VR efforts, a number of forward-looking bets, including on AI and Google Lens. Clay, welcome to the Heart of Healthcare podcast.
Michael and Steve, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
We're excited to explore the power of AI in healthcare from Sierra's vantage point today, Clay. So as I mentioned in my introduction, you left an 18-plus year career at Google to start Sierra. What problem did you see in the AI space that convinced you this was the one worth pursuing as a startup?
Well, first of all, the origin story of Sierra was a lunch that my co-founder Brett and I had in December of 2023, which was shortly after the release of ChatGPT. And I had been working with language models at Google. And what Brett and I discovered was neither of us could stop thinking about what these models seemed to be capable of. And so we hatched plans to start a company over that lunch, but not the company. Right? We really, through a process of discovery in spring of 2023, figured out, this is the problem to solve. And that problem, as I think about it, is helping businesses resolve the age-old tension between the cost and quality of how they serve their customers. And we've all experienced like the seventh circle of hell that is being on a phone tree and agent, or jamming the zero button or whatever. But unless you're Hermes or the Four Seasons, it's really challenging to show up in every moment with your customers with a kind of concierge, white glove level of service and care. And yet that's what the great businesses of the world endeavor to do. And so what we're trying to do is help the great businesses show up at their best in every moment with their customers. And the approach we're taking is enabling companies to build their own branded customer-facing AI agents for all parts of their customer experience. That is what the Sierra platform does. That's where we're the category leader and where we started the company.
Clay, I'm curious. I'm a healthcare guy. So Welcome to healthcare. Listen, at Bessemer, we invest in horizontal solutions, right? Not just AI, but we've done in SaaS, we've done it in infrastructure, and then there's vertical solutions, right? Focused on a particular industry. You guys at Sierra are taking what I think is a horizontal approach to the problem. Tell us about that decision, because it's, on the one hand, horizontal presents a lot more TAM, right? There's a base foundational layer that probably you would argue applies to many industries, but the vertical players would say, oh, well, Sierra, you're not as deep in construction or in, retail or in customer
Elevator
service
repair.
Or whatever. Yeah, or in healthcare, right? So how do you think about that? What I think is a sort of fundamental question of starting a company and choosing to have it be horizontal versus vertical.
Yeah, it's such a great question, Steve. So first, the way we think about an agent in the context of a company or a healthcare provider or a healthcare payer, we think that every company, just as they have a website, right? The internet enabled you to have a kind of digital storefront and a means of interacting digitally with your customers. Mobile made it possible to put kind of a miniature version of your company in everyone's pocket. We think every company is going to have an agent. And so this technology, the notion of businesses having customer-facing agents, we think it applies everywhere. And so that's kind of observation number one. Observation number 2 is it turns out that building these agents, so an AI that can think, reason, decide, take action, and do so across hundreds of millions of conversations, and in the healthcare space, very sensitive ones like no dispensing medical advice, right? Only helping with benefits and claims management, in this scenario, or account management or appointment booking over here. Doing that is really hard, and we have a notion of the agent iceberg where it seems really easy above the surface of the ocean. Choose a language model, right? Integrate with some tools. You look below the ocean and boy, is it complex. And it's voice, it's agent orchestration, it's how to use multiple models to achieve higher levels of performance. So those 2 points I think would push you in favor of a horizontal solution as you described. What we're trying to do is build a company that can both have the best horizontal capabilities and be quite deep vertically. And so we've organized our go-to-market and what we call our agent development team. This is a team of engineers and product managers who work closely with our customers, right, to build very bespoke, right, deep solutions for them on our platform or enable them with our platform. And, I won't say that we've, seen the matrix on every industry, but we are developing deeper and deeper vertical expertise, and in particular in healthcare, where we're working with several of the largest healthcare payers, providers in the country. And so I think if you can both be horizontal and get the kind of economies of scale of solving all those problems on the agent iceberg and develop deep domain expertise, it's in a way the best of both worlds.
Let me ask you a question as a follow-up to that. Do you think the vertical agents that are competitive with Sierra are features and not products?
Are features in our platform, not products on their own?
No, sorry. Do you think the competitors that are vertical in each industry, healthcare, retail, construction, ultimately become features and not products? Meaning they're going to be part of a broader platform that might be horizontal.
So we're obviously biased. We believe, we built the best technology and platform to enable agents that can kind of do anything. And so it's a matter of building the industry expertise, being humble about what we know and don't know. I think there's a kind of trope of the, Silicon Valley company that here we have a hammer, everything's a nail, we know everything. We've approached healthcare with a great deal of humility. The closest I've been to being in the healthcare industry is being the son of a cardiologist. And other than, reading a couple more EKGs as a kid than I might have liked to, I'm not deep in the space. And so we rely on our agent development team and partners and folks who are expert in the space to build that expertise that enables us to then build, I think as you characterize it, features of the platform as opposed to standalone products. I think when you approach it that way, you end up being able to deliver a much better and more comprehensive and high quality solution, including in deep verticals, because you're bringing all of the strength of the platform and then kind of the slice of vertical expertise that you need to really have it work in the specific setting of a healthcare payer or provider and their specific needs and their customers.
Yeah, Clay, sort of dovetailing off that, as you think about AI and specifically AI in healthcare, most of it today seems to us to be focused on sort of administrative costs, like ripping that out, and helping healthcare, I guess, ultimately run more efficiently. But what's next?
Well, first of all, I think the opportunity for AI agents writ large in healthcare is enormous. I think I'm remembering the stats. Healthcare is something like 17 or 18% of US GDP. And so just the opportunity to make more affordable care more broadly available, to streamline how care is delivered, to lower the costs is just enormous. What we built in Sierra is a system of engagement as we think about it. So a means for businesses to interact with their customers for more transactional things in the context of retail product recommendations, upsell, cross-sell, sales, getting someone activated on a new service or moving a subscription from one device to another, account management, and so on. In the healthcare setting, where we focused are things like benefits eligibility, claim status, account management, appointment scheduling. And I would characterize these things as kind of the administrative side of healthcare, which of that, 17 or 18% is quite significant. I think something on the order of a quarter of all spend is not on direct care, but rather kind of the administrative overhead on that. I think there is a very big gap between an AI that can pick up the phone and Michael or Steve schedule, your next pre-nuvo appointment or check in with Steve. I know you don't use an Oura ring, so maybe you don't do pre-nuvo scans either yet. I swear by my
No,
Oura ring.
I got mine done. I'm good, Clay. I'm good for another.
Great. Okay,
I'm
good,
going to be
good.
on this podcast for another 10 years at least. So
That's fantastic. Yeah,
Thank you.
Nice work there.
Thank you.
So there's a huge difference between an agent that can pick up and make a scheduling change or tell you the status of a claim and one that can dispense clinical advice. And we are not going to be that company. That is not us. I think there is such a level of depth and regulatory complexity and so on in AI that's dispensing medical advice. Will some AI agent do that? 100%. I already today use ChatGPT and Gemini. Here's my blood work. Please help me make sense of this. And then what are a couple things I should do? I have friends, right, who have a Google Doc of kind of every exam, blood test, and so on that they've ever had and feed those into reasoning models like previously the O1 model, now GPT-5 thinking and so on, and use that for advice on care, fitness, and so on. That to me is 100% in the future. And I think it's quite exciting. If you think about all of the things that a physician might need to have in mind in order to, have Synapse A connect to Synapse B and realize that, gosh, this constellation of measurements or symptoms could be this very rare thing that a physician might never see in his or her entire career. A language model is built for spotting patterns and connecting the dots, if you will. So I think we're going to see some amazing things on that front. I don't think Sierra will be the company that builds those clinical focused agents.
How many industries are you guys focused on today?
So it depends on exactly how you slice it. Where we have really excelled is in retail, in subscriptions and media businesses. So I think streaming, audio, video, broadly consumer services. So ADT is one of our largest customers. And Steve, if you have an ADT system and the alarm panel starts beeping and you can't figure out why. So if you call ADT, you'll speak with an AI that ADT built on the Sierra platform, and that AI can help you figure out which of their alarm panels you have. It's a battery issue, drop ship you a new battery in the mail. If you need a new sign, send you a new blue octagon. SiriusXM, a customer one of our earliest customers in the kind of media and subscriptions area. And Harmony, the SiriusXM agent, can send satellite signals from space to get you up and running on a new vehicle, can recommend content and, remind you which station Yacht Rock is on and so on. So retail, media and subscriptions, broadly consumer services, financial services with fintechs, neobanks, more traditional banks, mortgages, lending, and insurance. And then healthcare payer and provider. We're early, but really proud of some of the progress that we're making there. And been really pleased with how leaned in some really significant names in healthcare on both the payer and provider side have been with AI and agents and using them to better serve their members and patients.
Yeah,
it's great. I can tell my wife, Michael, that now I have an in when our alarm goes off that I can get. I'll call Clay and the police are going to come here to my house faster.
I know a guy, or rather, I know a very capable AI agent, right? That you can call.
Hey, the reason I asked the question, Clay, is, and I want to delve into this, is if you're agentic agent, right? If you're agentic capabilities in any of these industries, you're ingesting data, you're pushing data back into ideally the system of record in whatever that industry is. How do you think about, and where are you guys in sort of integrating with the systems of record in all those industries that you're in? Obviously in healthcare, the main system of record is Epic, there's others, but how do you guys navigate that? Because that's a lot of partnerships that you have to develop to make the AI agent actually fully work, which is to push and pull data from the system of record, right?
Yeah. It's a great question, Steve. And let me step back for just a second to kind of describe the anatomy of an AI agent, if you will, to then situate the systems of record that we need to integrate with. So again, we think of an agent as a piece of software that can think, reason, decide, take action. And it's funny, when we started the company, we had to explain to our friends and prospects what an agent even was, right? It's now Agent Everything. 101 is just one giant agent billboard for the past couple months.
That is totally true.
Agents everywhere. It's definitely entered the jargonosphere. But to demystify it, under the hood, there are a few things that to build an agent you have to do. First of all, is imbue it with factual knowledge. So we've all read about hallucinations and how the language models on their own are prone to making things up. And it's kind of their propensity to try and please and give a credible answer, steered the wrong way, can result in them making things up. There was a famous case where I think Air Canada, some gentleman wrote in, asked what their bereavement policy was, and said, "Oh, full refund." It was not a full refund. It was something very different. And so you can't have your AI making things up. So you ground the agent, and that's in knowledge bases, in facts and glossaries that you give the agent. That's number one. Number two, and really critically, are the standard operating procedures or the customer journeys or workflows, if you will, that the agent needs to be able to perform. And uniquely in the market, Sierra's platform enables engineers to define very complex workflows in code using a programming language we've developed, or using a no-code tool where in English language, a operations leader can define here's how it's done and how it's done well. And so that's kind of capturing the procedural knowledge that the agent needs to have, if you will. And then third, to your point, Steve, in order for an AI agent to be able to personalize the conversation, to take action, it needs to be integrated with the systems of record that the business runs on. And so in the case of a healthcare payer, it's okay, what plan are they on? What are the benefits associated with those with that plan? How do you process a claim? What is the status of it? So the system they're using for managing their claims. We do less on the medical record side directly, and so relative to Epic's kind of weight in the sector, we see it somewhat less. With each of these systems, we work with our customers and partners to expose access-controlled APIs to the AI agent. So many people have an image in mind of, oh my God, you're going to give a language model like unfettered access to your customer database or transaction history. No. What happens is the customer would authenticate him or herself via whatever keys are appropriate. And then the AI would have access to and only access to that particular patient or payer's information. And the AI is then able to make calls to those systems to retrieve information, take action, and so on, and orchestrate across those, just as a person kind of sitting in a contact center would be able to with a desktop full of tools. And then finally, our agents won't be able to do everything. They're self-aware of when they are kind of out of their depth, and can escalate to a person on chat or a phone when needed. And so kind of a handoff there is important as well. So really important to get right, Steve. What we find is in a given partner we work with, there's some combination of one-off bespoke systems that we may be seeing for the first time, and then a standard set of systems that we've seen before. And of course, as we work with hundreds of customers today, as that grows, we'll have seen kind of more and more, and the time to integrate these services, goes down by the day.
The reason I asked the question is I think there's going to be interesting battleground that plays out, and maybe it's only in the vertical solutions versus your horizontal solutions. But we use this term in venture landscape, and now it's all throughout Silicon Valley, of systems of record and systems of action, right? And clearly Sierra is a system of action. There are many other companies that are. And I think if I were a system of record, I'd be very fearful that over time, a system of action might sort of octopus strategy around me and ultimately create so much value to the end consumer or customer that the customer might be like, well, what do I have my system of record for, right? And maybe this is the difference between vertical and horizontal. I'm curious your approach, your view here. But like, I think a lot of the vertical solutions, fast forward 10, 20 years from now, might become systems of record, right? And I'm curious how you think about that. Do you think that'll come true? And is that a difference between being vertical and horizontal, i.e., would Sierra ever become a system of record in all these industries?
Well, your characterization of us is definitely correct. We think of ourselves as a system of action, a system of engagement, as opposed to a system of record. The last thing we want to do is recreate the systems that businesses already rely on. That said, I think between interactions that an AI agent will have, right, there will be things like memories of that interaction, what happened, and last time you called in, Steve, I remember you having a problem with this, and are you calling in about claim X? And so I think the direction of travel may be towards, certainly in the interaction setting, recalling memories, storing those, and so on. 10 or 20 years on AI time is a long time, Steve. So, my crystal ball today only sees, a couple months into the future. Things are changing so fast. The way I think about it is, we have this view of what we want to enable our customers to deliver to their customers. Just an elevated, really wonderful, low friction experience in every interaction. And so where we see gaps in the systems that we need to deliver that service, of course, like any great product company, we're going to think about building there. Today, it's not yet clear what we need to do above and beyond being excellent at interacting with the systems that our customers have built their businesses around. Also, as a young company, right, like we can't do everything. And so we've taken the position, like we need to play well with others. And that's the approach we've taken. And it's worked really well to date.
Clay, I want to shift this a little bit. One of the challenges when you think about service when it was done from call centers is, having an empathetic voice. A customer is calling in frustrated, has reached her or his limit. And they need action, right? And so they call in, and the most successful encounters, I got to imagine when you look back historically, are those where you had an empathetic ear on the other side of the phone. And so the real question for me is I think about empathy and AI. It's a really tricky concept. Can software, I guess the critical question, can it really be empathetic, or is it just mimicry?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're really getting into philosophy here now, and what is intelligence and the meaning of life and so on. More seriously, I think about it a little bit differently, and it's what is the company through its either associate picking up the phone and speaking, or in our case through an AI, what is it expressing? And one of the things we spend a long time on with most of our customers is the voice and tone and language, even the kind of background persona and personality of the agent and how that comes through. And I'll give you two different ends of the spectrum. One of the retailers we work with is a company called Chubbies. They make largely men's apparel, shorts. Yep. And their AI agent is named Duncan Smothers and has kind of a broy, irreverent sense of humor and will make jokes with you and help you with, a return, where's my order, all of that. At the other end of the spectrum, we built an agent for Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers, right? It's a program used predominantly by women, focused on health and weight loss. Very different personality for that agent. And Maureen Martin, the VP of customer care we worked there with I remember said to us, like, I was expecting it to perform well. I wasn't expecting it to be so empathetic and caring. And I was like, we didn't expect, frankly, Brett and I, when we started the company, for someone to describe the piece of software that we'd written as empathetic and caring. And yet there really is an element to that. And I think folks in an interaction with other people want to know that they've been seen and heard. I think folks in interaction with a business, with a company, if an AI is representing both the functional and kind of experiential or even emotional elements of the company, if it's showing up, Michael, if you call in and like, hey, you guys really messed this thing up, and the AI says like, gosh, I am really sorry to hear that. I'm sorry we got that wrong. We're going to get this figured out and taken care of. Let's get started. Well, gosh, does it matter that it's a person or an AI expressing that if really what you want is the company to make it right and you're relating to the company? I think we're in the early innings of seeing how this actually plays out, but we've seen not just glimmers, but very strong examples of our agents connecting with our customers, apologizing, and I think you'd call it being empathetic.
Yeah.
The last part that's really interesting here, we have on staff someone we call our voice sommelier. And this is a gentleman who works with our customers to design and tune voices to have the qualities, the timbre, the tone, the pitch, the breathiness, right? All of these attributes of a voice match what the brand, what the business wants to express. And so you can imagine in the setting where someone is writing in about a healthcare claim or they're concerned about whether a medicine is covered or not, you want that agent to speak in a certain tone and register. It is not, excitement, energy, enthusiasm. It's connection. It's, hey, I understand this may be stressful for you. Let's get this figured out. And for an AI to be able to modulate that, we think is really important, especially in a setting as sensitive as healthcare.
I love the title, by the way. What a cool role. Voice sommelier. I dig it.
We think it's the first of its kind in the world. So we've had a lot of firsts at Sierra. That was one that was not on my bingo card.
Michael and I have seen a lot of tech entrepreneurs come into healthcare and fail. Why do you think that is?
You would know better than I, Steve, but one thought I have is, I touched on it earlier, is I would say arrogance, or the flip side of it, lack of humility and maybe a lack of curiosity. It's, well, hey, I built this widget, I built this thing, it's awesome. You should, respect and love my tech. And it turns out that delivering healthcare at scale or ensuring people at scale is exceedingly complex. And I think a lack of respect for that complexity and the hard-won lessons and the nuance of it, and showing up, hey, I'm from Silicon Valley, here's this cool piece of technology, right? It just doesn't do it. And not that we are perfect or have done everything right, but I think one way that Brett and I have approached not only healthcare, but financial services as well, industries where we are not expert, is enlisting the help of experts and advisors, and showing up with potential customers with a lot of humility, knowing that, well, we know AI, we know agents, we know how to build scaled software, but we want to understand your business. And we do the work to come with enough background knowledge where, we're not asking 101 questions, but can show up knowing what revenue cycle management is and the different parts of that, why it's so important. And so to me, Steve, it's humility and being clear-eyed about what you're expert in and what you're not, and showing up with a lot of curiosity and openness to being wrong and learning, so that you can get it right and deliver a product and service that meets the needs of your customers and their patients, their members, and so on.
So healthcare is one of the most labor-intensive businesses in the world, right? I think it's one of the most potentially fruitful opportunities for AI and agentic AI to be applied, and has a lot of potential. What do you think the points of failure are? Like, if it doesn't work for healthcare, why do you think that would be the case?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we're really encouraged by the early signs that we're seeing with really significant organizations, some of the most impressive in the world, on both the payer and provider side, leaning into AI and agents. And the approach that they've taken, which I think is quite smart, is starting small, but starting. I think starting small, but starting, right? That's the beginning. And so it is not, let's convert the most sensitive parts of our patient or member experience to be AI agent driven. Let's start on something, right, basic, appointment scheduling or asking questions about benefits. You have to get that right. There's no room for hallucination there, but it's a tractable problem. And so I think early signs are there's a willingness. I think there's an approach to getting started, which again is getting started small, but still getting started. And I'm quite confident that the technology works and will work in more and more complex and sensitive cases. One of the things under the hood in Sierra agents going on is every agent actually comes with a set of supervisor agents. Think of this as like a set of Jiminy crickets looking over the shoulder of the primary agent, making sure, are you dispensing medical advice? Like that is a hard no. And clamping the session if that happens. Or if the supervisor detects that someone is trying to manipulate the agent into doing something that it shouldn't, identifying that and escalating to a person or clamping the session. And so we have the mechanisms for describing and capturing very complex and sensitive workflows, and for keeping agents within regulatory guardrails, keeping them compliant. The approach we take to building agents is itself auditable and inspectable. So kind of commitments on that front, our customers can also make good on. The area where, back to your previous question, where I have a lot of humility and I think I'm not fully confident in making a prediction and forecast, is how fast regulation and some of the law around kind of what kind of system can do what, right? Like a certified medical professional is the only entity that can dispense medical advice today. Michael, you asked earlier about clinical agents, and there's going to be some gray zone in between clinical agents and agents that help, with earlier parts of the patient experience. And so my simulator, my prediction model on how the regulatory landscape will catch up with the sophistication of the technology and the pull that we're seeing from payers and providers to bring AI and AI agents into their customer experiences, that I have a harder time forecasting.
Yeah, you already said you look only months ahead, but I got to ask a question because I'm so curious, right? I think
I try to look many years ahead. My crystal ball only works.
Well, you got a lot of work to do, so you got to do
weeks or months ahead.
You got to do a lot of work to do. It's you're only thinking about maybe quarters or months, but I think it's really interesting, right? Because software has provide advice to doctors for a long time, right? There's sepsis algorithms, there's lots of things that happen in the ICU and other places of healthcare. That's a triad structure, right? Triad being software, doctor, patient.
Yep.
Right? Three parts of the stool. We're going to get to a dyad structure. Like these agents are going to be able to do complex medical determinations.
Yeah.
Software, patient, take the doctor out. I'm going to ask you to put your prognostication on. I take Sierra out of it, but you're just you're like one of the luminaries in the space. Like, how far off are we from that?
Steve, I think we were very close. I think we were very close, and in places we're likely already there today. And so once a year, I'll wear a CGM, track my blood glucose, right? Track responses to meals and so on. Put all that data in Gemini or ChatGPT with some surrounding context about my weight and age and so on. Hey, what's going on here? Make sense of it. And I am not a doctor, but gosh, right, it sure reads as accurate, correct, helpful to me. Is it hallucinating? I'm not actually sure, but gosh, like it all holds together. And so I think we're closer to that than we may think. And what we found in the customer-facing bit is if you're able to provide the scaffolding around a language model, so clearly define a goal, define guardrails around it, ground it where you need, leaning on the reasoning capabilities and the kind of pattern recognition capabilities of language models, gosh, can you get far? And so, I can imagine a physician or a team of physicians and researchers really expert in insulin response, blood glucose, all of that, providing that same kind of scaffolding to one of these advanced frontier models and having something that is as good as, the best physician in the world in making sense of a bunch of data and making recommendations on that basis. I think that's so exciting. I think that's so exciting. Folks like Peter Attia, who were, I think, relatively early to identifying the importance of metabolic health, to continue on this example. I mean, it was like, if you're a bazillionaire, you can get an appointment with him. I can't. 99.999% of the world can't. And so how could you use this technology to provide access to that kind of care and judgment? I think it's sooner as opposed to later. And just, other data points on this. I talked about language models as, pattern matching and problem solving. I think the average estimate for when an AI would achieve gold on the International Math Olympiad, different from looking at blood glucose patterns and so on, it was like 5 or 10 years out. and it happened 4 months ago. And so just the pace at which these models are improving is, it's not only that the puck is fast going in that direction, but the velocity of the puck is actually increasing, not staying constant. And so I think if I extrapolate that, if it's not already here, it's going to be sooner as opposed to later. I think it's how do you make that viable and how do you regulate it in such a way so that you can have that dyad experience as you described, Steve?
When a lot of us hear AI agent, it naturally raises the question of job replacement. Am I putting myself out of a job, right? And there's interesting organizational behavior theory around is AI going to be adoptable because people recognize it down the line could very well replace them. How do you respond to that concern?
So first of all, I think anyone who says that AI and AI agents will not be a destabilizing force in the job market, in the economy, just isn't seeing it clearly. I think we've lived since the beginning of time where machines could do physical work for us, but like we did all the thinking. And in just the last 5 years, that's changed. And so in the context of customer service, kind of where we've chosen to start, the need to have a person picking up the phone and reset someone's password for the 78th time that day, like that will be done by an AI sooner as opposed to later. And so I think some amount of job displacement is inevitable and that will be destabilizing. And so if I have a concern, it is not about the job displacement per se, because people can learn new things and take on new jobs. It is the rate at which the change will happen. In past transitions, right, whether it was the agricultural revolution or the industrial revolution, or even the advent of the ATM or the PC, where you no longer needed to have computers on staff, i.e., people computing using pencil and paper. Those transitions happened over decades. What we're seeing here is going to unfold on the order of years. And so I think society can only kind of absorb so much change in a given unit of time. So I think that's genuinely challenging. And I don't know what the answer is, but I think you have to be clear-eyed that that's coming and something that we as a society and an economy are going to have to manage through. I am optimistic about what's ahead for a couple of reasons. One, I think even in our domain, we're already seeing early signs of new types of jobs emerging. In many of our customers, there's now a team called the AI architects, and it's a team chartered with basically teaching the AI how to do it right and take insights and, okay, gosh, like we could polish this edge or improve this. And that, just as the webmaster job did not exist before the internet, and being a YouTuber did not exist before you could stream video on the internet, being an AI architect didn't exist until there was an AI to build. So that's kind of a narrow example. Zooming out, I see AI, and the reason I am quite optimistic about this, as an amplifier and force multiplier for taste and good judgment and creativity. And if you as a person have an idea that you want to make real in the world, well, if it's a business, in order to do that, up until today, it's like, well, gosh, I've got to be good at software engineering and writing and marketing and accounting and running ad campaigns and 10 other things. So I think we will see an explosion of, as I think about it, like micro entrepreneurship, where someone has an idea and, before the advent of AI and having agents who, even if you didn't get a degree in computer science, could code for you, even if you haven't mastered Photoshop, could create a really nice marketing asset for you. So I think this kind of force multiplier for people and building new businesses, creating new products, I think that is just going to be fascinating and exciting. And I think there's so many ideas out there that can't be put into the real world, for lack of resources or cross-training across all of the things, right, that you need to be good at to put something into existence. So I'm very optimistic about that. And then, the last thing I'll say is for companies in existence, I think everyone's thinking about, coding agents, right? I don't need all my software engineers. People are not thinking about this as a multi-turn game, right? Which it is. Of course, if the world stays static, you could do what you're currently doing with fewer software engineers. But the world will not stay static. Your competitors, right, will have the same tools that you do and may choose to do more with what they currently have as opposed to what they currently have with less. And so you end up with, in kind of round 2 and round 3 of this, I think really interesting second order effects where, if it becomes that much easier to write software and go further down your roadmap and so on, do we write a lot more of it? Do we actually need more software engineers operating code generating machines because the leverage is that much higher? I think it's hard to predict. But I think thinking about those second order dynamics and competitive effects is pretty important as you try to play out what's going to happen in kind of established businesses at the advent of AI and agents.
I have one last question. Sierra is obviously a darling in Silicon Valley. Congratulations. I know you've raised a good amount of capital at a very attractive valuation, and I know you're early in your journey. I mean, it feels like the market is super hot right now, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs who want to be you, who may be you, who've have had valuations like you. What's the one piece of advice that you give entrepreneurs in these heady times where you can drink your own Kool-Aid and there's, Silicon Valley tends to be and venture capital innovation tends to be like an echo chamber. How do you keep yourself grounded?
I think as a business, as an entrepreneur, you are only as good as how your customers think you are. And staying grounded in, are you doing great work for your customers? Are you building a product that they value? Are you showing up day in, day out for your customers? Is the product and level of service you're providing excellent? Are you customer obsessed? That is the yardstick. That is, in the end, the only thing that matters. And Brett and I often talk about what we're building at Sierra as a machine for producing happy customers. A company is a system, a machine. And in the end, the only thing that matters is, are your customers happy? Are you building something that they value and that delivers, in our case, something great for their customers? And so I think that is the ultimate grounding in reality.
Clay, what a thoughtful, great conversation today. What a masterclass, not only in AI, but also in entrepreneurship. I can't thank you enough for joining us. And I want to thank, of course, our listeners for tuning in. We'll look forward to seeing you all next time.
Michael, Steve, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to The Heart of Healthcare. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please leave a rating and review. And don't forget to subscribe. The Heart of Healthcare is produced by Hallie Tecco and hosted by Michael Esquivel, Steve Krause, and Hallie Tecco. The show is engineered, edited, and mixed by Kyle Moore. Visit our website, heartofhealthcarepodcast.com, for show notes and details.
You know how everything's a subscription now? Music, movies, even socks. I swear if
To continue this ad, please upgrade to Premium Plus Platinum.
What? No, anyway, Blue Apron...
This is a pay-per-listen ad. Please confirm your billing.
Oh, that's annoying. At least with the new Blue Apron, there's no subscription needed. Get delicious meals delivered without the weekly plan.
Wait, no subscription?
Keep the flavor. Ditch the subscription. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.